Back in 1965, if you wanted to know how your car worked, you opened the hood and looked. Points, plugs, a carburetor, a distributor, you could time with a screwdriver and a good ear. A teenager with a Haynes manual and a Saturday afternoon could pull a cylinder head, decoke it, and have the thing running by dinner. 60 years later, the average new car has more lines of software code than the space shuttle. The hood is sometimes bolted shut on purpose, and the engine might not have any moving parts you'd recognize at all. So here's the question: is car culture actually dying? Or does it just look that way from the driver's seat of a world that changed faster than we did? And if it is dying, who killed it? When did it happen? And is there anything left worth saving? Let's get into it. First, we have to define what we're even mourning, because car culture means different things depending on where and when you grew up. For the generation that came up after the Second World War, especially in America, the car was freedom in the most literal sense. A 32 Ford with the fenders pulled off and a flathead V8 was a ticket out of your town. Hot rodding wasn't a hobby, it was a whole language, and it grew up on the dry lakes of Southern California and the drag strips that followed. Britain had its own version, with the cafe races and the Mini. Japan built the whole drift and touge scene into the hills around Mount Haruna, and Germany turned the unrestricted Autobahn into a national personality trait. The common thread through all of it was that the car was mechanical, affordable enough to modify, and the modifying was the point. You bought a slow, cheap car and you made it faster with your own hands and your own money. That loop, buy, break, learn, improve, is the engine that drove enthusiast culture for the better part of a century. Now watch what happens to each piece of that loop. Start with cheap, the affordable performance car, the thing that hooked entire generations, is on life support. Think about what a young enthusiast used to be able to buy for very little. A Mazda MX-5, an early Golf GTI, a Honda Civic, a Fox Body Mustang, a Nissan 24 OSX, cars you could insure on a part-time job and thrash without crying about depreciation. The new car versions of those have crept steadily upmarket, and the used ones have been discovered by collectors. An AE86 Corolla, a car Toyota practically gave away in the 80s, now trades for money that would have bought you a house in the town it was built. When the cheap, fun cars stop being cheap, the on-ramp to the hobby narrows. Then there's modify. This is where it gets genuinely difficult. And it's not just nostalgia talking. Modern cars are hostile to the shade tree mechanic by design. Engines are buried under plastic covers and packed so tightly into the bay that changing a spark plug can mean removing an intake manifold. Everything talks to everything else over a network, and the network doesn't like strangers. Try to fit a bigger turbo or a freer flowing exhaust, and the car's own computer may simply refuse to cooperate until it's been reflashed by someone with the right software and the right license. The right to repair your own machine has become an actual legal fight in Massachusetts and in Brussels and elsewhere, which tells you how far we've drifted from the screwdriver and a good ear days. And of course, looming over all of it is electrification. This is the big one, so let's slow down and be fair about it, because the internet is not fair about it. An electric car removes almost everything the enthusiast loop was built around. There's no engine note, no gearbox to master, no valve clearances to set, no carburetor to balance. The thing that made a car feel alive, the mechanical drama of thousands of small explosions being managed by a person's right foot, is replaced by near-silent, instant, effortless thrust. And here's the honest part that the EVs our soulless crowd skips over. They are ferociously, absurdly fast. A dual-motor Tesla Model S will embarrass supercars that cost 5 times as much, and it'll do it while playing you a podcast. That's not nothing. That's a genuine thrill. It's just a different thrill, delivered without any of the ritual. And ritual was a big part of what we loved. The skill floor dropped. You no longer have to be good to be fast. And for a certain kind of enthusiast, the being good was the entire point. But, and this is where the car culture is dead, argument starts to wobble. We've heard this funeral before. People said car culture died when leaded fuel went away. They said it died when catalytic converters strangled the muscle cars in the mid-70s, and honestly, if you drove a 1975 Corvette making around 165 horsepower out of a 5.7-liter V8, you'd have believed them. They said it died when electronic fuel injection replaced carburetors, when power steering went electric, when the manual gearbox started disappearing from the options list. Every single time, a generation of enthusiasts declared the soul gone. And every single time, the culture didn't die. It mutated. The malaise era gave us the tuner scene, because when factories won't sell you power, you go find it yourself. The death of the carburetor gave us the ECU tuning world, where a laptop and a good map could squeeze out more than any carb ever did. A Mark IV Supra or an R34 Skyline making numbers that would have been science fiction in 1970. The thing enthusiasts do over and over is adapt to the machine they're given. That's the actual culture, not the carburetor, the refusal to leave the car alone. So let's apply that lens to today, honestly, and count what's genuinely dying versus what's just changing clothes. What's genuinely dying is hard to argue with. The manual transmission is nearly gone from new performance cars, and even the holdouts are treating it as a niche special order box. Porsche will sell you a manual 911 in certain trims almost as an act of preservation. The naturally aspirated engine, the one that revs to the moon and screams, is being legislated and turboed out of existence, because a turbo is the easy way to pass emissions and economy rules. The cheap rear-drive coupe is a rare bird, and the simple mechanical connection, the sense that your inputs go straight to the road with nothing in between, is being filtered through so many electronic assistants that some new cars feel like you're advising the car rather than driving it. Those losses are real, and I'm not going to pretend they're not. If your love of cars was specifically a love of that mechanical intimacy, then yes, your particular corner of the hobby is shrinking, and it's fair to feel the loss. But here's the other column. Motorsport is not dying. Formula One just went through the biggest audience boom of its entire history, dragged into a whole new generation's living rooms largely by a Netflix show, and the grandstands are packed with people who weren't born when Senna was racing. Sim racing has become a genuine pipeline into real motorsport, and there are professional drivers on grids today who learned racecraft on a computer in their bedroom before they ever sat in a real cockpit. That's not the death of car culture, that's a brand new door into it that didn't exist 20 years ago. Car meets are still happening in car parks and at cars and coffee events every weekend all over the world. Classic values are through the roof, which is a backhanded compliment. It prices people out, yes, but it also means the old machines are being cherished and preserved rather than crushed. The Restomod business is booming, where companies take a classic shell and stuff modern running gear underneath, giving you the shape you love with brakes that actually work. Singer does it to old 911s and charges supercar money, and there's a waiting list. And here's the part I find genuinely funny. The enthusiast instinct is so stubborn that people are already modifying EVs. There's a growing scene of home-built electric conversions, where somebody drops an electric motor and a battery pack into a classic Beetle or a Mini or an old Land Rover. Tuners are coaxing extra power out of electric drivetrains with software, the exact same trick the ECU crowd pulled on petrol engines a generation ago. The tool changed from a spanner to a laptop, but the itch is identical. You give an enthusiast a fast machine and tell them not to touch it, and they will touch it. It's practically a law of nature. So maybe the honest answer isn't car culture is dying. Maybe it's that car culture is doing what it has always done, which is refusing to die, while loudly complaining that it's dying. Now, I want to be careful here, because there's a real risk of being too optimistic and hand-waving away a genuine problem. There is one threat that's different from all the others, and it's worth taking seriously. Every previous shift, fuel injection, turbos, emissions gear, still assumed a human being wanted to drive the car. The self-driving project doesn't. The end goal of full autonomy, if it ever truly arrives, is a world where the car is appliance and the human is cargo. You can't build a driving culture around a machine that has quietly decided you're not qualified to drive it. That's the one that should worry an enthusiast, more than electric motors, more than turbos, more than any spec sheet. Not the electric car, the driverless one. Because a fast EV is still a driver's car. A robo-taxi is a rolling waiting room. But even there, I'd bet against total surrender. The horse didn't vanish when the car arrived. It stopped being transport and became a passion, a sport, a thing people do on weekends purely because they love it. Millions of people still ride horses for no practical reason at all. There's a decent chance the manually driven car follows exactly that path. Pushed off the daily commute, but very much alive on track days, at hill climbs, on back roads early on a Sunday morning, kept going by people who do it for love rather than need. And love, it turns out, is remarkably hard to kill. So where does that leave us? Car culture, as your grandfather knew it, the cheap, mechanical, everyone-can-tinker version, is genuinely fading, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. But the deeper thing underneath it, the human urge to take a machine and make it faster, louder, weirder, more yours, and then go find other people who feel the same way. That's not going anywhere. It's just moving into new bodies. Some of them are electric. Some of them live on a screen. Some of them are 80-year-old shells with modern hearts transplanted inside. The car isn't dead. It's just shape-shifting again. The same way it did in 1975 and 1985 and 1995. And every time we swore it was over, and every time we were wrong. Which brings me to you. I've given you my read, but I know a lot of you have lived through more of these so-called deaths than I have. And some of you are wrenching on EV conversions in your garage right now, while others wouldn't touch one with a barge pole. So tell me in the comments, is car culture actually dying, or just changing clothes again? And more than that, what story about cars do you want me to cover next? Drop it below, because the best videos on this channel usually start as a one-line comment from one of you. If this made you think, or made you angry, or made you want to argue, hit that like button, because it genuinely helps more than you'd expect. And if you're not subscribed yet, do that too, so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you in the next video.